All right, guys, this is the comic book haul for September 2015, and second time shooting this because I just really babbled way too long in the last one, man, and stumbled. And it's a rainy Saturday. It's raining here in Virginia like freaking Seattle in the 90s. And tried to get the lighting around. It's so gloomy. There's just no hope for it. But it's time to do this because I'm in the middle of doing my planetary comic book reviews. Uh, I want to reshoot the last two that I shot for issue 9 and 10 because I shot 10 videos in one evening. And by the time I got to the last three or four, man, I didn't realize it, but I'm really out of it, man. It's a little mentally challenging, draining is probably the word. I mean, it doesn't feel like work. I love the books and stuff. For you guys that have been hanging in there and watching those and stuff, thank you very much. Big shout out to Sleepy Reader for shouting out those videos. His comment when I thanked him kind of cracked me up. You know, he admits it's a little selfish, which yeah, it's cool, man. Anyway, so basically what's been going on is I've been shrinking my books down, and I did the Mercer Mall twice, 2 months in a row. Table's $40. First month I did spectacular. Second month I sold a few things, but everybody hit my dollar boxes. And even though I sold a ton of stuff, it's like I paid for my table and then I didn't break $100. So then I took that stuff and I took it to a new place in Bluefield, West Virginia, Bluewell, West Virginia. They're so close. It's one of those things where you don't even know you're in another town. And I traded off for stuff and got a little bit of cash, but I wasn't real happy with it. Thank him, and I'll thank the owner for doing it anyway. Don't get me wrong, but I ended up like getting some odds and ends, like my first Ramones record, which I have at work. I took my record player to work, play in the office while I do paperwork, and a few odds and ends, and this big stack of books. But the first stack I'm going to show you is the last time I sold in the Mercer Mall. There's another guy selling books over there, and he had dollar boxes and stuff. And I pretty much we were going to do a trade, but he got so busy he just said he saw my stack and said just $5, whatever, you know. So I got all these for $5. This is the first stack. I'm gonna go through it pretty quick. First thing that I got, there's some wear on the cover to where basically the gloss is done, a few bumps in here and stuff, but it's going to take out, you know, I've got to be close to having this whole series, man. But this is from the Bronze Age, Machine Man number 12. Great little series. It's fun. Jack Kirby creation, of course, from his 2001 series that he did. Kirby did the first couple issues. Steve Ditko came on, and I don't know who did these. I haven't cracked them open yet. Number 13, which is in phenomenal shape, all glossy, all flat, was fantastic. And then the video that kind of broke my channel for what it became. And by no means do I have any illusions on how small my channel is. Don't get me wrong. But from my perspective, I was comfortable and found my rhythm and started doing what I do on here with this series. And these are just two readers' copies, which are just fantastic because I always like to dig these out. John Byrne did issue 1 through 8. And then from 9 to 30, I think Steve Gerber came on. Brian Hitch did the art. A couple guys took over. Byrne left for creative differences. Then they brought him back with issue 31, and it's like the series just picked up from where he left. Everything that happened in between was a dream sequence, is what he said. And with Steve Gerber writing, man, some of his stuff is just so psychedelic that fits perfectly. I didn't take it as an insult. And then he ended up doing up to issue 50. This series also, the big reveal in issue 50 that I'm going to show you in a minute was that this book wasn't part of our Marvel Universe. This is a comic book you would buy in the Marvel Universe. This is where the heroes would contract themselves out. Something that Fantastic Four in the actual book would mention every now and then. Not a lot, but it's in there. But anyway, She-Hulk from I think 1990 or something like that. And I have all of these, but I'm just going to leave these out as readers' copies. Just a fantastic book. Issue 50, this has art by Frank Miller, Dave Gibbons, Brian Hitch, Walt Simonson, Wendy Penny, Howard Chaykin. And what it is, it's about John Byrne is supposedly dead. Marvel's flipping out, and she's walking around the Marvel offices, and they're handing her pages of artists they want to come on and take over her book. And John Byrne writes in the style of those artists and stuff, right? He's still writing the book. But when you got Dave Gibbons, he writes it in kind of a Watchmen 9-panel style that's very English. She thought it felt claustrophobic. There's a few pages that Frank Miller did that's very Sin City-like, and John Byrne writes in that style. and so on and so forth. Like here's the Frank Miller pages, actual Frank Miller pages, Sin City style of She-Hulk and stuff. On comicboards.com back in the early 2000s when I got on there, I was talking to some guys on there on message boarding before YouTube, and I talked about this book. And this was the first comic book professional that ended up talking to me online was Walt Simonson. He got on there and was talking about the book and gave some insight, and it freaking blew me away. Because that comic book message board, which is probably still around, you had like the Superman board, the Spider-Man board, and then you had like the New Gods board. That's what it was called back then, you know, the Kirby stuff. And he frequently was on that board. And I was on the Golden Age, Silver Age board talking about this stuff. You know, it was still on topic the way I brought it up and stuff. And all of a sudden there's Walt Simonson. I ended up talking to quite a few guys on there. Anyway, part of the $5 deal, number 13 of New Mutants. I've never read this one. Around issue 8 or 9 up until about Secret Wars, so there's a good 20 months to 2 years that around here it wasn't on, New Mutants was not on the stand, which is wild. You know, I mean, I never really thought about it. But anyway, an issue that I never read, Key Pride on the cover. Issue 18, I think this is Bill Sinkovich's first issue. I've had this 2 or 3 times, but I think I'll hold on to this time. I think it is The Demon Bear. And that's where that book just got really sophisticated, you know. And then I was really glad to get these. A lot of these are doubles, but I'm bound to have the whole series now. And there's actually an issue or two not in this stack. I'm going to have to look for it because I know I bought more. But anyway, I got the Marvel Comics Presents. These are in phenomenal shape, bagged and board. This is where Barry Windsor Smith came in on this anthology series that was weekly when it came out. And he told the story of Wolverine getting his adamantium, okay? Classic story. So here's number 82, and like I said, I just bought up everything he had because there's 1 or 2 issues. I've had this set 2 or 3 times. I wished I kept the set that I bought off the stands, just out of, you know, having, you know, it's the one I bought off the stands. Oh, what is that word? It'll come to me here in about 5 seconds, and I'll just spit it out, you know. But anyway, number 83, just a fantastic, fantastic story. Whoops, we'll save that for a minute. Yeah, this is probably one of the ones I really needed. 81, where Wolverine gets to, you know, he's in Berserker Rage and he didn't remember any of this. You know, this is the story that us as a reader got to know. Wolverine never knew. They ended up touching on it a few times, but he comes face to face with the guy that put him through that painful process. Love this cover. That is just freaking classic of Barry Windsor Smith. These aren't in order apparently. Just a great series. You know, there he is with the adamantium rods, you know, shooting into his system. Just awesome. Bonding with his bones. And then I finally got an issue of this. I love Eric Powell, and this is, you know, he does Goon and a few other odds and ends, you know, whenever he feels like it there. You know, Goon is through Dark Horse, and then he'll do a little bit of work for Marvel, and he'll do some covers and, you know, stuff like that. Well, this is something he came out with Image, Big Man Plans. And this freaking thing takes place in 1979, and it's about a dwarf who just is on a revenge kick, and it's violent, and they beat the hell out of him, they set him on fire, and he jumps into a river, and he comes out hearing the words of his dad of never give up or something like that. And just freaking awesome, man. Reminds me of like a 70s movie, man, like Walking Tall or something is what it reminds me of, man. It's definitely got a feel of one of those old drive-in movies, man. It's freaking awesome. And then I got this. This is, of course, beat up. And for me, this has actually been one of the harder issues to find because I'm always grabbing a What If or something like that, you know, like this. But this is What If Wolverine battled Weapon X. And this thing is, you know, got a big bad spine roll on it and stuff. But I finally get to read the story. And what is very cool is that, of course, this goes back to the Weapon X story that I saw you about, or What If story. And Ron Randall, who he's just and I mean this, like this guy is just an artist who's never really hit it big. I've seen him do stuff at Dark Horse and a few things for DC, and I've seen him do some inks and stuff. But this guy comes in and he actually does a great homage style to Barry Windsor Smith in this book that is just spot on. You know, even, I mean, of course the colorist helps and stuff, man. But you know, he gets Barry Windsor Smith's cross hatching and his what I call kind of a clay organic feel to his work. He just nails it, man. I mean, he does a really good job. He even gets those odd angles that Barry Windsor Smith does. So, you know, kudos to Rod Randall for a great job on this, man. Very underrated artist. Great storyteller. not jobber, storyteller. He's one of those artists that is hired because he's consistent and he can tell a story, which is awesome. I think that's it. Yeah, I don't know if I should. Yeah, I think I should these. Yeah, more of those, just in case I didn't. And if you're interested, some of the other stories they had in the book was a Human Torch story, and Hawkeye, and Firestar. You know, so awesome. Okay, now we're into the stuff for the trade. When I took the stuff that I didn't sell at the Mercer Ball in 2 months, and there's some hot books in there, but I'd already put them on eBay and nobody picked them up, so I got a pretty good trade. But this is some of the stuff I traded for. I'm not going to go through all of it and stuff, so I'll spare you. That's what happened in the last video. But anyways, this is some odds and ends, man. Like if you haven't checked out Matt Wagner's Mage, going all the way back to the Comic Co days of the 80s, it's fantastic. Long story short, Kevin Matchstick there. All the people in this were more or less reincarnations of great literary heroes and whatnot. Okay, like Kevin Matchstick. I hope I'm getting the name right. I've read it so sporadically over the years. As basically King Arthur, and that bat that he carries is actually Excalibur, and all the characters in it kind of go through that theme and stuff. Very, very good book, and it shouldn't be hard to get because they have come out with color. I really can't tell you actually how many issues of Mage are original and how many of the series that I've read were reprints that were recolored, or Matt Wagner had taken to another company and they reprinted them. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to get Mage. Anyway, getting closer and closer to getting all of the Crisis crossovers. Something I've always kind of wanted to do in the last couple of years. I've been very fortunate. This Loser special, #1. This was a one shot, and I flipped through it, man, and I didn't really see the Crisis on Infinite Earths connection. So when I sit down and read it, hopefully I will, man. To me, it's just the last story of the Losers. The Losers die twice, and that Native American arm plays really big into it from what I flipped through and saw, which probably goes back to Johnny Cloud in the team. Baxter series, Legion of Superheroes from the 80s. Love this stuff. I'm not going to explain what the Baxter series was. That's what happened in the last video, the way I was explaining all that. Number 33. The Universo Project is a great Legion story, man. Okay? Great. Really, really well done. And then there's a sweet spot for me, man. I would put this era of the Legion, right up there with Byrne and Austin on the X-Men, on Wolfman and Perez on the Teen Titans when they first came out. But like from the Great Darkness War, Great Darkness Saga, one of those classic stories I'm forgetting and stuff. But basically, when Darkseid popped up and they had the Legion versus a Darkseid of 3,000 years from we know, came out, I feel like from issue 290 all the way up to about 310, those 20 issues, just a great era of the Legion and stuff. So here's issue 296. I'm not going to go into the Legion again. That made the video too long. 297, focusing on Cosmic Boy. Legion has tons and tons of characters to pull from. And Paul Levitch and Keith Giffen had found that perfect balance of getting all those characters in a little one shot here. Like issue 301 was a Chameleon Boy story of him getting his powers back while bonding with his dad that he didn't know was his dad. I mean, it was just, some of these stories were just fantastic. And then in this issue, I remember reading this as a kid and stuff. What you don't catch is that they're going against the Emerald Eye, but those are actually two couples from the Legion. Legion's famous for some of its couples and stuff. The Legions all get together and they end up getting married and all this stuff, and it's all there. But this is Brainiac and Supergirl who were an item, with Shrinking Violet and Colossus Boy who were an item. And this next issue, I love this issue because 305. One of the things that the Fantastic Four did in the 90s was have Johnny Storm, or was it in the early 80s? It was during John Byrne's run, so it was the 80s, excuse me. They had him, Johnny Storm, marry Alicia Masters. Alicia Masters was the girlfriend of the Thing since the Silver Age and stuff, right? Thing went into Secret Wars. He ended up staying on Battle World, and it ran through his series. And while he was there, Alicia Masters and Johnny Storm got together. So when Ben Grimm comes back and expects a big homecoming and stuff, he catches them in bed. Well, I think it was Tom DeFalco and Paul Ryan on their run in the early 90s, mid 90s, had turned out to where Alicia Masters was actually a Skrull. Okay, years before secret invasion and all this stuff. So Johnny Storm had actually married a Skrull. Well, it turns out in this one, this was the same thing had happened. This is years before they did this. The Legion had it to where Colossal Boy was married to Shrinking Violet, but it turned out to be a Daxam, which is like Chameleon Boy. I keep saying Chameleon Kid. He's dead. Chameleon Boy, and it was a shape changer this whole time, and they ended up staying married, much like Johnny Storm did with the Skrull for a while, and I don't know how that ended. And then 310 may be the last issue before it turned into Tales of the Legion of Superheroes, where they just started reprinting the Baxter series. I could be wrong. Speaking of the Baxter series, here's a few more. And like I said, I'm not going to go through all these and stuff, but they had an artist named Steve Lytle come on, and Steve Lytle, man, left his freaking mark on the Legion, man. I mean, he is still... There's people that would still love to see him come back to the Legion, and he created a few characters that really got into the alien concept of the Legion of Superheroes, considering they were part of the United Planets, and they were pulling from worlds, letting people join the Legion and stuff, and he really came out with some better ones. And then like this Baxter series should be praised because they took Silver Age and Bronze Age characters and kind of brought them back. And they just made him dangerous. They didn't really change him that much. They just kind of gave him a little bit of an attitude change. Starfinger, Universo, stuff like that, And they made him cool. And in issue 54, I think Keith Giffen had left the Legion to go do Justice League and his ambush bug stuff and everything like that. And I think this was a big deal because, he kind of came back. Little update there. Alright, and then, like I said, there's a bunch of Legion books and Legionnaire books. I'm not going to go through them, but there's a huge stack that I got. And I know there's not a lot of Legion fans that watch this thing, but they definitely have their fan base and stuff, okay? But I ended up getting an extra copy of Exiles number 39. I'm trying to get the the entire 100-issue run of Volume 1. And I'm really close to getting it, so I'm down to that point where I'm kind of getting... an issue here, an issue there, that's a double, which is fine. That's a series where the Judd Winnick issues and then the Frank Terry issues, you definitely notice a tone change, a change in... Judd Winnick had a way of letting that series kind of breathe, and Frank Terry was kind of like bam, 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 the way the stories go, much different pacing. Okay, then this is a great series from the 80s from Comico. Comico just... They had a lot of great stuff, man, and I wish I had access to back in the 80s. I wish I gave them a bigger chance, because back in these days, an indie book was weird. Getting an indie book was an indie book. It was not the big two. That's just sign of the times, and this stuff, it's great to be able to get it now. But they had a great Johnny Quest series. This is number 17 and 19, so I'm closer to getting all those. Very close. I passed this book up last year for 35 cents, and I was really glad to get it now. I really just want it for the cover, but this is from 1984. Yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz cover of Dazzler. Reader 1717 had this in her video. But this is a Michael Jackson Thriller tribute, Chiller there, which is great, beat up. And next up we have a comic book bag with a price tag. You can reuse these. They last, a lot of time. You want if you go this way instead of Mylar, you want probably polypropylene, not polyethylene. Polyethylene will rot your books. Polypropylene does a much better job. Go pro, that's how I remember it. I got these two books, Deadpool Core with a Rob Liefeld cover. That's going to go on eBay. And this is a cool cover. I'm back and forth on it. But, they did it in the style of Classics Illustrated stuff, but we got Deadpool Illustrated number 4. I don't know, Colin Bunn on there. Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. So get that glare off of there. So yeah, that's going on today. And we're about done, folks. If you want some really good adult Western reading that's full of curse words and just a lot of fun and actually has some authentic cowboy stuff in it, go get the Joe Lansdale and Tim Truman books. They're a series of, I think most of them were 3-issue miniseries throughout the 90s. I think this was one of the last ones, if not the last one. Shadows of the West number 1. Just freaking awesome Jonah Hex stuff. Mixes horror in there and freak shows and stuff like that. 3-issue prestige format of Destiny came out. Neil Gaiman he didn't own the character because he pulled him from previous DC Comics, but he added him to the Sandman and Endless family, if you will. This is number one of a 3-issue prestige format. No idea who the artist is. A lady named writer is Alyssa Quintley, but I know Kent Williams, and Kent Williams is just freaking awesome. Okay, got some Swamp Thing, 146. Matt, going blank. Mark Miller. Mark Miller did some Swamp Thing before he hit big. 158. What's great about Mark Miller writing, I think he wrote to the end of the series, is that when he came on, Mark Miller and Grant Morrison were kind of buddies and stuff, and Mark Miller was tagged with Grant Morrison a whole lot. I don't know what their relationship is, but I don't know if it was like an under the wing thing or once you write some stuff with me. And this is where Mark Miller finally kind of got out of the shadow of Grant Morrison, because Grant Morrison did the first 4 issues of his run with him. Swamp Thing Annual number 7, Charles Vest cover. And this is part of the Children's Crusade, which was an event that ran through the annuals of Vertigo. It had 2 bookend issues of the Child's Crusade written by Neil Gaiman. And then in the annuals, they continued the story, but the focus of the story were any of the kids that ran through those Vertigo tiles, like Teffy, I think it's her name. This one is Teffy-centric with Swamp Thing's daughter and Abby's daughter and so on and so forth. Cracked up when I saw these. These covers go together somehow. But these are from like 1987, and it's one of those things where I'm not going to say I don't remember it coming out, but it definitely didn't make a mark if I knew about it. I'm sure I saw an advertisement or something, but I couldn't resist getting these. It's the Outsiders Infinity Incorporated crossover in a special edition. This was a time where they really crossed over after Crisis. They pulled the Infinity Incorporated, and there was no Earth 1 and Earth 2, and Infinity Incorporated was on Earth 2. But one of the first things it seems like they did is like they planted Infinity Incorporated and tried to get them established on the new Earth. So they had a crossover with the Teen Titans in their series, and they came out with these specials, one-shots that crossed over with the Outsiders. And I'm not going to make any bones about it. I don't expect those to be good reading, but why not? Forgotten Realms loves this series. Out of all, in the late 80s, TSR and DC was doing some licensing projects for TSR, and they came out with Forgotten Realms, which is written by Jeff Grubbs, who actually works at TSR. And I can't remember who. I think that's right. I can't remember. They came out with the actual Dungeons and Dragons book, and they also came out with Spelljammer. And it seems like I'm forgetting something in there. But these books were actually kind of cool. But this is the one I liked. Rags Morales ended up doing the first quite of the first issues and stuff where he was replaced. Rags Morales is a very underrated artist in my eyes. Got some Tor from Joe Kubert. This is a 70 series. Tor is Joe Kubert's tales of a caveman back in, mixes it with dinosaurs and stuff like that. He's taken this to several companies. I love Tor. You throw in an Anthro or a Commandy or some kind of post-apocalyptic or Caveman Days or Bigfoot, and I love all that stuff, man. So there's number 1. Excited to read this. And here's number 2. This did not run very long, okay? So it's probably, if I can get them all, I probably might even consider that to be one of the first miniseries. I don't know if it was a DC Implosion thing from the late 70s while it was canceled, or Joe Kubert just told his tale. They're really hard to find. Some Teen Titans, and what I love about this issue, this is number 94. Marv Wolfman had either left the book or take a break, and Louise Simonson came on and did this issue, and that's kind of cool for me because she took over the New Mutants, which were teenagers after Chris Claremont left in the 80s, and now here she's on the new Teen Titans. I think that's kind of cool. Just need 2 more issues to complete my Secret Six run of the Gail Simone series that I think ran. It was basically canceled because of issue 52. I think it was a solid 36 issues. This is issue 29. Love that series. Got me some Max number 18. Excuse me. So this is apparently a tale in the Outback. Love that stuff. Infinity Incorporated number 14. Todd McFarlane's first work at possibly DC. I know it wasn't his first printed work. Jump up to issue 31. Getting those. Got this for the pure fun of it. This is based on a toy line and a cartoon that had a cartoon series too, I think, from the 80s called Cops. And I think Bart Sears and it was the one that designed all these characters for the toy company and stuff. But this is Pat Broderick cover on Cops. Got that just for the pure fun. I was like, what the hell, you know. I'm not a big fan of this. I mean, I'm not a fan, not a big collector of this series, but I ended up picking a few up here and there that catch my eye. Shade the Changing Man, number 26. Just love that cover. Chris Bachalo art, you know. And then this is a book that I don't know, it's not worth a lot of money, but it's been really hard to find because it's Batman centric. But number 65, I think this is where Tim Drake shows up at the door of Dick Grayson as Nightwing. It says, Batman says, if you want to learn how to be a Robin, go see him. I can teach you this and I can teach you that, but he'll be the man to teach you how to be a sidekick or something. So I always wanted to get that one. But yes, New Titans, Baxter Series number 65, after they dropped the teen part of it. Whew. Wow, shooting that video twice has worn me out, and it's still a 25-minute video. Sorry, did my best. The other one was longer. And keep collecting them comics. Planetary comic book reviews will continue, so hang in there, my guys. Thanks a lot.